It's been a while since I've done one of these micro-philosophic symposiums. What I'm about to share is not merely a corporation of around a dozen of my video essay generations, but really is the tensegritous synthesis of my entire philosophical and creative corpus to date. Which, as you can probably imagine, means I'm going to need to leave more out than I'll have room to include if I'm to make this script even somewhat wieldable. So this time, I'm going to do something I usually save for the end of the videos and point you towards the description links to my literary corpus, specifically The Noble Ape, The Wolf's Account of Arcane Philosophy, and The Tao of Grimdark, as well as my Omniverse and Project Outlander playlists for the fullest picture of my opus vitae. For those who are chronically short on time and/or patience, however, let me cut right to the chase. When I say that I've invented a new genre of fantasy, I mean this in the same sense that it's usually meant when we say Isaac Newton discovered the laws of motion. I.e., was Newton literally the first man to work out that an apple falls towards the earth when you drop it? Or that if you push a moving object really hard, it'll move faster? No, but he was the first to codify these principles, which is a fancy way of saying that he wrote them down. Likewise was the case with him inventing calculus to describe the irregular motions of planets. This is why we know his name. He gave us the means to describe all physical motions of the heavens and the earth, something that mystics and astrologers and alchemists and philosophers had been working and failing to work out for millennia beforehand. Very similar standards can be applied to your Francis Bacon, Darwin, Tesla, Heisenberg, and Einsteins, among many more. In short, these men are all what you would call visionaries, meaning that they spotted holes in our models of reality and using their creative intuition set about contriving entirely novel expressions, both in the forms of actual language and of mathematical formulae, to help us fill them in. Meanwhile, in the world of philosophy, we talk along parallel lines about the likes of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Martin Luther, Descartes, Voltaire, Schopenhauer, Marx, Nietzsche, and Anton Lavey, again, among many more, in regards to the construction, or destruction, depending on your position, of the modern popular zeitgeist. All of whom, in their own unique ways, and for better or for worse, added or subtracted notes and chords to our world's rhetorical matrix according to what they individually perceived to be the most pressing needs of their specific times. Accordingly, just about every work of Western fiction you've ever heard of spawned from the minds of certain standout literary figures like Shakespeare, Tolkien, Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard, Gene Roddenberry, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, Stan Lee, Frank Herbert, Gary Gygax, Rick Priestley, etc., each of whom built upon the genetic code of the Western corpus by either harmonizing or synthesizing the most relevant bulk of what came before, according to their own personal preferences and perspectives. And while I realize there's no way to overtly compare myself to any of these figures without coming off as the most conceited man on earth, I do so mostly in order to paint a picture of my ambitions while leaving my actual accomplishment, or lack thereof, of that goal up to your own discretionary judgment. In case you're still not picking up on the pattern yet, what I'm doing isn't so much pulling a rabbit out of my hat as reassembling an heirloom deck of cards in a different order, while adding just a few subtle custom variations on a few existing cards. If you've been following this channel for a while, or if you didn't skip over the opening spiel, you can probably already guess which are my proprietary contributions to this esoteric formula. Again, I've already described every part of this expansive thought project in detail elsewhere, so for the sake of brevity, I'll just refer you to an updated version of the old chart I drew outlining what I consider the cardinal forms of fantasy. The crux of my idea being essentially to fuse these composite elements into a complex yin-yang chaos wheel, balancing out each polar aspect with its opposing twin, using the soft magic and moral alignment systems of high fantasy to help equalize the whole power uber alles ethos of grimdark, cosmic horror to add stakes to the multiverse, the little people, big world concept to inject some much-needed levity and humility into the fantasy sphere as a whole, and all of this orbits around my own proprietary notion of the soul, which can most succinctly be described as the philosophical and psychological equivalent to the wave function. That is, it's a discrete self-perpetuating packet of semi-stable coaxial states and cohabitating modes of being that persist across time and space. Now, rather than my simply reword everything I've ever written about the omniverse, the mind, and the soul, I'll instead demonstrate for you my idea in its first fully articulated form, what started as a random side project over on Discord, wherein I'd make our most active members, and myself, into characters in an intergalactic space adventure, but which has since evolved into the protoplasmic capsule for my entire life's work. I'm not sure if Celavi quite stretches far enough to encompass that, but anyway, here goes. The Black Wolf was one of the few beings who recalled a time when value had been charged and changed in denominations of material assets rather than by units of disposable work time and free energy, or labor. In this new apocalyptic era, the fundamental worth of anything or anyone was decided not by its mechanistic proportions or properties, which had all long ago been trivialized by the ubiquity of FTL travel and fully autonomous machine labor forces, putting the full and complete stock of the universe's assets in the collective pocket of any species cognitively adept enough to exhume the self-apparent realities of tenebrae vibrations, Penman causality, soul forces, and quaternometric math, nor even by their informational capacity or acuity, but by their degree of personal power. In essence, it was their ability to freely act according to their independent natures which set them apart. Those who could come, go, ride, fly, and die as they personally saw fit were seen as the true gods of the universe, and were rightly venerated as such. Nowadays, the currency of the realm was not rocks or metal or work, or even information, but souls. Those purest platonic forms of pleasure known to exist, as they alone could harbor or produce that most vital element to all sentient lives: novelty. And not just trivial, nondescript, isotopic iterations of other existent patterns either, but true abraxonic fantasy. The one thing no mine or vat or assembly line could produce. No algorithmic assemblage of parts or programs could replicate. And thus, in a cosmos overflowing with legions of infinitely deployable, infinitely disposable paperclip stampers, the enigmatic quanta of imagination was the last bastion of real value. Unbeknownst to many, power could be directly distilled from the body's affiliation with its soul. The soul being the corporeal manifestation of the tenebrate matrix, formerly known as the Akashic Record, the Babel Cloud, the Black Library, the Great Gate, among many other rubric sobriquets. In all cases, it was an omniversal lattice of mimetic cords, strings, and tethers which housed the totality of all information in existence. In truth, it was the ultimate and original data vault. And as any student of the untold mysteries well understood, information was the purest and most primal mode of power in existence. Not only was it the fundamental quanta of the mind, but the very essential substance of structural reality itself. And as such, in this sense, Bowden and Wolf were to these cretinous legions who thought them their captives what a stamping boot was to a trespassing vermin colony. To quickly wrap this all up, I've composed a short Omniverse code, if you like, sort of like the Jedi and Sith codes, just to get to you the general spirit of where I'm coming from with this project. These are the 5 core maxims that made up the philosophy from which I derived this fictitious corpus. To wit, peace is a lie, there is only passion. The only rules that matter are these: what a man can do and what he cannot do. What we feel is of no consequence, it is what we do that matters. I can see all but through the eyes of another, and they the same. He is freest who accepts that he is already dead and that all is already lost. And now, with all that out on the table, I pass the ball on over to your corner. Have I built something luminary, or have I just German engineered myself up a tree again? Let me know in the usual ways and places. And on that note, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out my books and channel merch. Join up as a member either here or over on Patreon. Join me for free on my alternate channels to give YouTube's monopoly the bird. And until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay sane, and remember, life's too short to take seriously. Peace be upon you.